going on, everybody? It's Geoff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal, joined as I am every week, for the most part, every week, our weekly-ish sports show, ABQ Journal Sports Live, that is still open for, naming rights, and those high-dollar gifts certainly help us in the naming of the show. And once you send in that tax-deductible gift, it's not tax-deductible, donation, the show can be named after you. So, Sean, how you doing?
I'm good, Geoff. How are you today?
I'm good. I haven't been working a coaching search, so things are good with me. You had the misfortune of covering in a 12-month span, I guess a 53-week span, let's call it, basically two coaching searches, which is miserable stuff to do for the local journalist, for the beat writer stuff. It's not fun. It's a lot of hoping. The very few people with information deem you worthy of sharing it. Otherwise, you can get a whole lot of 80 to 90% of a stories done, and basically still have to sit a little bit on it. So now that you've done two of those in about a year, I will ask you, before we talk about the new football coach at UNM, what do you think about covering coaching searches? How fun was that for you?
I will say that this one was, and it's a byproduct of definitely just doing it at one point before. This one was smoother, in my opinion. And part of that, too, was I think there was a little bit of trust built up. Like you kind of mentioned, the few people that are in the know and are willing to talk to you kind of on the local level. That was a little more, it was a little smoother this time around. And it wasn't quite, I remember like the feeling of panic, being on the phone and my phone buzzes and it's, sources, New Mexico is targeting Bronco Mendenhall, and that's the Pete Thamel tweet, and you're just spending all day trying to confirm that in just some form or capacity, and then really you drag that out until basically 10:30 that night, 11 that night. But yeah, this was definitely a smoother process. Do I want another one? Do I want a fourth head coach and potentially as many years? No. Let's keep the coaching searches down for a little bit too.
Should ride out at least more than 1 year. I mean, I think this one will last more than 12 months. We'll see. If it doesn't, I'm starting to think you're the problem. But I
might be. I mean, I really might be.
If you're not part of the solution, Sean, maybe you're part of the problem. So we got a new football coach in Albuquerque. Lobo fans going to be happy with this guy. What's your initial reaction to the reaction from Lobo fans? Because as you know, I told you last week when you were pretty certain this was going to be the guy, my initial reaction to you, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think this is what I told you. It's not going to be a sexy hire. It's not going to be a win the press conference or win social media kind of hire, but it might be the right hire, might be the best hire. But it's probably going to be a little underwhelming for a lot of fans just because they don't know the name. I actually will say maybe I was a little bit wrong because I think the reaction's been a little bit more positive. But let me ask you, I mean, that was basically what I said last week about if it was going to be Jason Eck, right? And what do you think the reaction's been since it's been officially Jason Eck?
I think the reaction's been pretty consistent to what you said, although I will say there is that positive element, a little bit more of a positive element too. And I think that's because of just how things ended with Bronco.
Yeah,
where they could have brought in a lot of guys, and I think a whole lot of people will be on board. And I'm not saying that Jason Eck is like, a lot of guys and, not a great hire or anything like that. I'll go on the record here. I think it's a good hire. We're going to see how everything plays out over the next couple of weeks and spring ball and the season, all that too. I think it's a good hire. I mean, the track record is 100% there. He took a really struggling Idaho program in a really tough spot and made them instantly competitive, and not just in the FCS. I mean, they played Washington State that year pretty tough. They played a bad Indiana. 2022 Indiana was not good. They played a bad Indiana team pretty tough as well too. But those games particularly do just kind of come down to talent, and they ended up having more talent there too. But I think that's one thing too, and I think and I'm not saying any of this to denigrate Bronco. Like, again, I'll go on the record of this too. I enjoyed covering Bronco. I have a lot of respect for Bronco. Like as a person, I would have loved a couple more injury updates here and there, but it is what it is. At the same time, Bronco does things so differently than everybody else. To have a different guy come in and kind of speak a little bit of a different language, a little bit more of a And I'm not saying this as, Bronco is, very full of himself or narcissistic by any stretch of the imagination. This is just a term that's coming to mind, more down to earth, a little bit, less kind of platitudes and all that. And we'll kind of, keep that conversation going. And I think people are starting to see that. I think they're going to see that out of Jason in the introductory press conference tomorrow. I have not talked to him yet. You are aware of this, Geoff, but for those who are watching at home, I have not spoken with him yet. I've went back and looked at some of the old press conferences he's done at Idaho. I pulled up a mid-zone clinic he did last year.
You're breaking down his film. I know you broke down his dancing film.
Yes, I gotta give him credit. I mean, that is I think Andy Staples with On3 after the Wyoming win, he reached out to him and they did a little bit of story about the dancing and all that too. And I think his quote from there, the anecdote from there is that it was like 1996. They're in Madison. He's playing offensive line in Wisconsin. And Barry Alvarez want to get the team, closer together and all that too. So they had kind of a semi-formal basically. And apparently Jason Eck, do or die was just dominating these dance competitions as well too. And his quote from that story, I believe, was pretty good for a large white dude, to have those moves. So
Richie Flores says Eck is saying all the right words. I would agree.
Yeah.
That's sort of, you worry in the few instances when they don't at this point, though. I think it's been done enough now where the coaches understand the right buzzwords and cliches and messages to sort of send. The messaging right now is kind of similar to what any coach probably would be saying right now. So you worry more when they aren't saying the right things. I wouldn't read too much into somebody saying the right things now. I'm not telling you not to get excited about it because I think it's probably a pretty good hire too. But yeah, he is saying the right things right now. Adam Lopez likes the fact that they went and picked him up in the PJ, the old private jet, or personal jet for somebody, I'm sure, but a private jet. They did, him and his wife, and I don't know if I assume all his kids. I just saw two of them in the picture, and I know he had. Well, I guess no,
he's got 5 kids.
Yeah, and I just saw 2 in the picture.
2 older boys, 2 younger girls. I think that's how that matches up. We'll have a better idea of this at the press conference tomorrow. I'm assuming they'll all be there. So yeah, but no, yeah, Adam, I like that they picked him up in the PJ too. I would like to get picked up in a PJ at one point. That'd be kind of nice.
Those that don't know, when Fernando Lobo, the athletic director, had his introductory press conference, Van Tate from KRQE.
You're not actually doing this, are you?
I am doing this.
You're not actually doing this. Okay.
Van Tate from KRQE gets the mic and introduces himself. Van Tate, KRQE, local CBS affiliate. I like you already, Fernando, because you're tall, which I took as a personal shot to me sitting 3 seats down to his left. He said, I like you because you're tall. Okay. All right. I think I'm showing up to the press conference tomorrow to ask one question. Might not even ask a question. I just want to say, Jason, Geoff Grammer, Albuquerque Journal. Jason, I like you already because you have no neck like me. And I think we're going to go with that. And then I might ask a question. I might not. Might ask him who he thinks danced better in a post-game celebration, him or Ted Lasso. And we might go with that, and that might be it. And then I might just walk off. But
mid press conference, just completely mid press conference.
I'm saying. Okay, so those that don't know, though, Jason Eck is a former offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
6'4", I believe. I think that's his height.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people will confuse he and I around town. We both have this offensive lineman look, both in that 6'4" range. He might be 6'4". I'm 6'4"-ish. And I do think that people will probably like this hire for a few reasons. First of all, I did get a text message. Yeah, I didn't ask him, and I'm going to go out on a limb and assume this is okay to share. But I was texting with BJ Rains up in Idaho yesterday, and he does a weekly show. Jason Eck did a weekly show, I think pretty regularly, with
Reider and John Mallory, those guys.
Yeah, on the radio show, right?
Yeah, good interviews, by the way. Those are fun to watch, actually.
And so he did a weekly show with Bronco Nation News, with a couple of the guys that work at Bronco Nation News, which is an online site, primarily video in this format, what we're doing right here. I've talked to BJ about when we were starting to do some of this stuff, but also he does do some stories and stuff like that. Anyway, Jason Eck, while coaching at Idaho, did a weekly show with them. And so BJ sends me a message last night, says he thinks Eck is a fantastic hire. He really thinks that UNM got a good one. And sort of that's what you can do in this situation, right? Is only go with the people that know him, because he isn't somebody that we've been able to flip on the TV every Saturday and watch his team play. He's not a guy that most fans in Albuquerque or anywhere are going to be able to kind of go through their mental Rolodex and remember that one game where they did this, or remember that one season that they did this. It's just a lot of Google searches and taking people's word for it for a little bit. But that's okay, because the last few hires, let's remember, they went for the former D1 coach who was in TV and Bob Davie. They went for the hotshot assistant offensive coordinator at a Power 5 school at Illinois with Mike Loxley. They went with the hometown hero who just bleeds cherry red Lobo colors through and through, and Danny Gonzalez. And then they went back to the guy with New Mexico connections, but a former D1 head coach who was trying to get back in the game, Bronco Mendenhall. None of those things worked. You know what they haven't tried? I don't know the last time they went this route, but what they haven't tried is a guy who's really successful on his way up. A guy who is now Danny is on his way up, and Danny's still going to do good things in coaching, I believe. But
I don't think Bronco's going to fall off a cliff at Utah State either.
Right. But what they didn't do is the FCS guy kind of looking to take the next step to FBS. And if he uses UNM as a stepping stone, that's the most inaccurate characterization that Lobo fans have about both basketball and football here, is that it's a stepping stone. Tell me who used Lobo football as a stepping stone in the past 2 decades.
Yeah, I mean, really the last guy kind of this mold was Dennis Franchione. At least in my opinion. I mean, it's Dennis Franchione and what he was at Pittsburgh State for like 5 years, 4 seasons, something like that. And then Southwest Texas State for like 2 seasons. And then New Mexico, obviously, throughout the 90s. But that's really the last guy kind of from this mold. Rocky doesn't really fit pretty neatly in that box. Loxley does not fit neatly in that box either, regardless of results. And you kind of mentioned, if you, probably some Google searching and all that to kind of figure out the candidate. If you've been tapped in, and I'm not saying I'm a huge, a diehard consumer of FCS football. I've had some family that worked in the FCS, so that kind of, that got me into it a little bit more and kind of following on a more regular basis. And you knew a couple guys that played at FCS programs as well too. But really, I mean, what put it on the map for me was really that 33-6 win last season they had over Nevada. It was a bad Nevada team, and good FCS teams can beat bad FBS teams. It's not an unusual thing, but they dominated them. I mean, they made that Nevada team look really bad. And that wasn't a Nevada team that was particularly, no offense to like Ken Wilson, like amazingly, it wasn't a great situation overall. And there was some talent issues, and there's some roster issues and depth issues and all that too. But I mean, they made them look really bad in a way that was kind of shocking there. And that's what kind of got Eck on my personal radar. And then they end up going to the FCS playoffs that year. I think they beat, I don't remember. I think they beat Southern Illinois because I think it was like a last minute win. I don't remember exactly how it played out in the Kibbe Dome. And then Albany, I think, was who they lost to in the I think it was the FCS quarterfinals as well. And they had made the quarterfinals since like 1993. So that's a pretty big gap there too. And for those that are not familiar, Idaho, I mean, was hit pretty hard by the move down from FBS to FCS in 2018. That kind of put the program in a really tough spot. And Jason Eck is a guy that came in and I mean, it's 7-5 first season, and then a 9-win season, then a 10-win season after that. And I know as this news was kind of initially being leaked and all that too. Of course, he was playing his final game in Idaho against Montana State, and that was certainly did not go their way in the second half for sure. Although that was 10-10 early, they went the onside kick, which I think he said in this press conference after that, maybe that wasn't the best call, but onside kicks are if you get them, great. If you don't get them, oh no,
all mistakes when they don't work.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually arguing about the Lions onside yesterday too. So yeah,
and they lost. Lobo Fish, what's up, Lobo fans? I'm happy with the head coaching hire. Good to start endorsing the program with players again. Go Lobos. I would assume that the roster will start populating itself again with names. and maybe even jersey numbers a little earlier than last year.
Geoff, I forgot about that. That's going to be, no offense to Bronco, truly, like that was way tougher than it needed to be in spring practice. Just staring.
I didn't cover him, so like that was fine with me. I thought it was funny, but I wasn't out there in spring practice trying to like recognize the third string, guard. And is that so and so, or is that so? Like it was it was not a fun task, I'm sure, for the people trying to identify players and actually. You're not close enough to see the piece of tape on their forehead, on their helmet, and all that. So, and position coaches get to know their players a lot quicker than the local beat writer trying to get to know 85 to 100 new faces on the team. So, yeah, have fun with that. This was from earlier, Richie Flores. That's two letters that I don't know what those stand for. That's a killer question, and I think that was when, of course, when I was. Going to ask him if he dances better than Ted Lasso to non-Division I head coaches who have found success at the non-Division I level. And then went on, Ted Lasso went on to great things in his next football coaching job, just happened to be overseas in a different kind of football. So a lot of people will tell Jason Eck that he's kind of gone to a different country in New Mexico and Albuquerque, and he's about to find out if he can succeed as well. Juan is telling us from YouTube, a coach that can win despite the program limitations. Sign me up. This is what's interesting though. He's about to have a whole lot more resources than he's ever had.
Yeah.
And he's never been at a place. Listen to this. This kind of goes back to my other point where like the Lobos and UNM have never really tried going this route before. This is going to be the most resources that Jason Eck has ever had at his disposal to run a football program. We'll see what he can do with it. I would imagine he's going to do just fine. There is an interesting question I have, Sean. Let me throw this out there to you on this. The moving up, if you're at the FCS level and you have a coaching staff, I hate to do this to Lobo fans, but I'm gonna relay this to Chris Jans at New Mexico State. When he was the basketball coach there, he had X amount of coaching salary and coaching pool money for his coaching staff, right? So you're limited on what you can hire. When Chris Jans made his big payday and quadrupled his salary or more than that, I think he might have been 5 times, and got the SEC job at Mississippi State, he basically brought over his entire New Mexico State coach on a dime or coach on a budget sort of coaching staff to Mississippi State, and he's been successful there. Now, there's been some pieces that have come and gone since then, and he's replaced this with that. He has some more resources to at his disposal, and I think he had some assistant to the head coach type positions that he didn't at New Mexico State. Point being, what will the FCS coach, what will Jason Eck do? Is he going to bring over mostly his same coaching staff that he had at a job because that's what he could afford? Or is he just going to clean house and get entirely new coaching staff? And now that he can spend a little more on a coordinator, he's going to spend a little bit more and get somebody different. That always fascinates me. A lot of his success as a head coach is based on who his assistants were. So is he going to bring them all and just pay them a little more, or is he going to find new people because he can afford to, maybe upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a bigger staff to work with. He's going to have at least the opportunity to put together a bigger staff, I should say, at New Mexico. What I haven't been able to confirm it, but the kind of the sense that I get is that it's very much he's going to be bringing over a lot of guys from Idaho. I think if you haven't looked at his resume, Jason Eck is really well traveled. He's had a lot of different stops in a lot of different places, and that's always a really interesting head coach. A guy at the end where you do 1 year at one place, another year at another place, and you're kind of just bouncing around for a good long stretch. Not always super fun in the moment, but you get to learn a lot and meet a lot of different people and see how things are done in different programs as well too. But to kind of to actually answer the question, the sense I get is that it's going to be a lot of Idaho guys. He said today on Geoff and JJ's show, great interview, by the way, from Geoff and JJ, that Luke Schleusner, I believe that's how I pronounce it.
Who how you pronounce it.
I believe that's how I just pronounced it. I don't know how everybody else should pronounce it. Who's the OC at Idaho. And then he worked with him previously when I believe he was ex-passing game coordinator at South Dakota State. I think they've worked for the last 9 years or so together. He said that he'll be coming over too. I'm assuming that will be in an offensive coordinator role. Maybe that leads to an assistant head coach, an associate head coach kind of role, add that in as well too. But that's kind of the sense I'm getting. It's very much there might be some new names in there as well too. And there might be a couple guys who are, I have this opportunity to go somewhere else. I'm going to go take that to compare it to Bronco taking guys to Utah State. A lot of that staff is guys that were at New Mexico last year, but, obviously Jason Beck, Micah Simon, they're at Utah now too. And then Famika and he's at Cal now too. That news went official over the weekend. I do want to actually.
Well, let me throw a quick one in there. Forgive my ignorance. Has he hired an offensive coordinator at Utah State, or said who would?
Yeah, he was the wide receivers coach at San Jose State, and that was really quick too. And I'm blanking on his name.
But it wasn't a jump up from the New Mexico staff like a position coach.
No, it wasn't a jump up from the New Mexico staff. It was the wide receivers coach at San Jose State. I'm blanking on his name. I'll try and pull it up right now. But yeah.
Real quick, I'm going to pull something up. Jason Eck just sent out a tweet. While I pull that up, Ben Wysong, this is a great hire. Excited for this program and looking forward to seeing how they develop through the winter spring season. Ben, if I read Twitter right and I read X right, I don't think you're allowed to watch Lobo football ever again because Luke's leaving, and some people tend to think that Luke Wysong shouldn't have moved on. And I'm kidding, of course. Luke, I'm very happy that he's going to Tucson. I think for those that follow Lobo football, obviously there were two guys who especially early in the year, were the guys that kind of made you think, wow, this team's looking pretty good despite a couple losses early in 0-4 start. And Luke was absolutely one of them. Ben, I know the Wysongs are still going to be following Lobo football for a variety of reasons. But I wish Luke nothing but the best going to Tucson and playing for the Wildcats, a place where he has already had one hell of a game, by the way. I think their new offensive game. Yeah, yes. I think their offensive coordinator in Tucson too is a guy who really loves using the slot. I remember reading something once on him that said how he uses the slot, and then I saw somebody tweet it last week. I was like, oh yeah, I remember reading that.
Are you talking about the new offensive coordinator?
Yes,
or Burley or whatever.
And
when were you reading up on like Marshall football? When were you? Lindy's maybe. Lindy's maybe. Yeah.
Well, anyway, if they use the slot the way this guy's used the slot receiver, apparently, Luke may have a hell of a season. Who knows? It doesn't matter if he's a slot or not.
I think he's going to get a role regardless. And I'll add to very happy for Luke. It was always a pleasure to work and talk with him. And wish him nothing but the best.
Pull up one more of these and I'll let you talk about it while I pull up this tweet, which is giving me a hard time for some reason. Jimmy H with a couple 1-2. I have fingers crossed and I'm very hopeful for this coach.
Yeah, I think.
I'll let you go with this because you can explain this. Any word on salary yet? Go ahead.
Yeah. So look, so the news went official at about 11:45 a.m. on Saturday, and it was kind of weird for the weekend and a couple other things going on. The basketball game too, and we had a media availability with Fernando Lobo after the basketball game. So literally, it was who came in. Flip came in, then Patino, and then Fernando spoke to all of us after. And that was the first question that was asked. It's a 5-year deal. You can confirm that. Okay, well, how much is he making? Fernando said, we're not going to put that out there quite yet. We're not going to release the MOU or the term sheet quite yet either. I haven't been able to get my hands on it. I asked again today. I am assuming it will be out tomorrow. If it's not out tomorrow, that will be frankly kind of ridiculous. But I don't know yet on the salary. What a week for that's not it, Geoff. That's not it. You're muted now too.
You can tell I haven't cleaned out the little file of images in this setup for a while.
I don't have a word on the salary yet. I have a couple educated guesses that I really won't share here, to be honest with you. But it is a 5-year deal. You have any other questions you want to put up? We want to dive into this tweet, or
I'll dive into this tweet. I don't know why it's not letting me pull up the image. I was just going to pull up his image, but I'll instead pull up his entire tweet, and we can zoom in and see what his actual statement was. But this is Jason Eck just kind of put this out. It is really a thank you to the University of Idaho, and his His peeps back there. Extra camera, share screen. All right. And if you're not following Jason Eck, you can do so on
at Coach_Eck.
At Coach_Eck.
On X, formerly known as Twitter.
So here we are. This is his statement to the Idaho Vandal Nation. Let me get Jimmy's comment off the screen there. Let me get this off the screen here. And this is what Jason Eck just sent out to Vandal family. We are so appreciative of how you embraced our family. The last 3 years have been nothing short of amazing. From the 6 years our family spent in Moscow, it will always, by the way, I've been to the Kibbe Dome.
Hey, it's not, it's Moscow. It's Moscow.
You know, it's Moscow.
Like Moscow.
No, you're right. You are right, but you can tell I'm not from there. From the 6 years our family spent in Moscow, Idaho, it will always hold a special place in our hearts. Thank you to President Green, AD Terry Gaulick. Is it Gaulick? I think
Gaulick, yeah.
Gaulick, and all the administration for taking a chance on a first-time head coach and the support they provide to Vandal football. Thank you to our student body, fans, and alumni for showing up in force to watch us play. Thank you to our coaches for their tireless effort. Most importantly, thank you to all the players for believing in us. You guys are the program. We're forever in debt for what you did for our family. Again, kind of striking all the right tones, chords, and saying all the right things. It's what a grateful coach should always do when he leaves, in my mind, is thank the players for giving him the opportunity to progress his life and his career and do it in a way. Any coach that moves on to something bigger and better needs to very publicly thank the players, and I'm glad that he did so here. So good for him there.
Yeah, and I'm certain he thanked a lot of guys and is probably still talking to guys behind closed doors and all that as well too. But certainly the public the letter, the kind of tweet goes a long way as well too. For those who kind of see the 6 years and might be a little bit confused, after Eck played at Wisconsin, he was a GA for a couple of years at Wisconsin, GA for I think like 2 seasons at Colorado. And then he started his position coaching his career as a full-time coach at Idaho before all that. So certainly kind of a cool full circle thing for him to go back to Idaho eventually, and also to kind of restore it to a really nice level.
He's the kind of guy you could just tell listening to past interviews he's done, and I did hear some of this morning's interview on the radio on the opening drive. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a guy that I think fans are going to like because he's personable. He's gonna talk with them and not just at them and stuff like that. A few coaches back, I thought did that a little bit, talked at people in Albuquerque a lot. I think Bronco didn't talk at you by any stretch, but he wasn't out in the community necessarily. He wasn't sitting there telling jokes. He was a very nice guy.
I think he was out in the community a little bit more than maybe you get credit, but not quite in the way that Danny did. It was a departure.
Certainly not like Danny did. If Bronco was out in the community, that's look. I'm not trying to make another Bronco show here, but that is a little bit of news.
Every show, I also sound like the ultimate Bronco defender too. I'm not trying to do that, that's that. But
yeah. All right. Any update on Eck recruiting?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact number, and I was actually trying to figure it out before we went on the show, and I couldn't lock down every single one. I have probably over 100 tweet notifications for people on right now, and a lot of that recently has been Idaho players. If you look on Twitter, there are a lot of Idaho fans who are kind of like, this is not good. Like, we are losing literally everybody, and I was trying to figure out the exact number of Idaho kids that are in the portal. I have not seen New Mexico to this point in terms of they might have done it, and somebody might not have tweeted about it. The norm is, so-and-so enters the portal. They tweet about it. With that being said, this many years of eligibility remaining and all that too, and they tweet out their offers. That's a way that a lot of people, particularly me, end up kind of tracking this stuff. And there's a lot of Idaho kids right now that have made the decision to enter the portal or are currently in the portal. The notables in terms of that, those guys, Jordan Dwyer is was a receiver for Idaho. entered the portal. I think he was the first guy to actually kind of put his name in, or at least announce his intentions to. If you watch the Montana State game on Friday night, you know who this guy is. Really good receiver. I think he was, I want to say in the neighborhood of like 60 to 70 catches, 1,000-yard receiver, I think 1,192 yards, and I'm blanking on the number of TDs, but good game. And he's a guy that is not only getting interest from New Mexico, but the other offers have seen Washington State, San Diego State. I know Mississippi State was kind of giving him a good look too. I think he's taking an official visit out there. Read that on 3 last night. Iowa also offered him as well too. So he's not just getting, kind of Mountain West looks either. Jack Lane, due to injuries, they kind of played. It was Jack Lane, and I think, Jack Wagner, I think is the other quarterback too. They had to play, 2 guys throughout the season as well too in terms of quarterback. Lane is a guy that is in the portal. He played against Montana State. He's got a really nice arm. He made kind of that huge TD. I think that ended in TD. That huge TD throw. I don't remember exactly what point in the game that was. And he'd actually go back and watch that game again. Dwayne McDougal is a DB who has a UNM offer from Idaho at this point. Malachi Williams, my phone just buzzed like 10 minutes ago. He has a UNM offer out of Idaho as well too. So yeah, I am not thinking I'm going to ask him about it tomorrow at some point. I'm not really. Yes. Somebody in the comments, Geoff. Oh my gosh, there's 2 great comments here.
First of all, let me get to this one just so I can try to catch up a little bit.
No. Let's get the most recent ones. Let's get the ones from Justin and Chris Big. Yeah. Yeah. So 19 officially in from Idaho, which is it's a lot of dudes. And yes, thank you, Justin. By the way, appreciate you. And then Chris, 12 TDs for Jordan Dwyer as well. No, I'm thinking of Jack Lane. Which one are you talking about?
We can pull up by those stats.
No, I think Lane passed like 1,400.
And so, yeah. The as far as the recruiting goes, though, we should start learning a whole heck of a lot more right now.
We're gonna see. Yes, Dwyer. There we go. Thank you, Chris. Didn't exactly know you there. So it's a lot of portal offers right now. I'm gonna ask him tomorrow after the press conference, probably. What is kind of the plan for putting this roster together? I know on the radio today he talked, and I thought this was a really interesting and pretty honest point too, where he was addressing the team over the weekend. I believe it was on Saturday night when he kind of zoomed in to New Mexico and all that too. And he said, this is not going to be a deal where, I'm going to need 3 years to get all my guys in or whatever. Like, we expect, I'm expecting to go to the postseason in my first season here.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
you don't hear coaches say it wasn't like I guarantee it. But it was a guy who was not afraid.
Yeah, no, it was,
it's sort of you don't know what you don't know. Maybe he's about to find out why it's really hard to get to the postseason at UNM. Or maybe he's just a guy that doesn't care about that. And he said today, my expectation is to be in the postseason.
Yeah, and it didn't read as a as a really cocky kind of thing, and it didn't read as it's going to turn and we're going to figure this out. It was just kind of that's my expectation. We're going to see. I think you made the great point with maybe you'll find out. I'll ask him about high school recruiting too and stuff like that as well. What I know that their philosophy kind of was at Idaho, and he talked about it from the show today, was that, if you are a recruit that checks all the boxes and you do all these things really well, you're going to have Texas coming after you, Notre Dame coming after you.
Well, that'll bring. Let me pull this one back up. This was from earlier. Juan said exactly there, and this was when I was talking about his resources. He's never had these kind of resources, and he's been a winner at the FCS level. He's actually about to have more resources. And this comment came up, but then we kind of moved on to something else. So Juan said earlier, exactly, there were some fans questioning his ability to get FBS level players. The guy was getting FBS players at the FCS. Why would he struggle now? And I'll let you run with what you were just starting there. But I think it's an interesting thing because it's come up a little bit on social media is like, what can a New Mexico's role be in the new NIL world and this new transfer portal world where if you do good, you move on? Is it almost worth embracing that and telling recruits that like here's our history of players. A lot of schools say, look at all the guys that went pro, and they have on the wall there pictures of all the guys that went pro. I don't think schools are going to start putting pictures of guys who transfer, but maybe you don't shy away from the fact that maybe your quarterback is now getting a Power 5, Power 4 starter who got paid quite a bit of money because he flourished at UNM. And you got a receiver going to the Big 12, to a Big 12 team in Arizona, who in my mind is just going to be a star at Arizona. Maybe you don't shy away from that in the recruiting process. Maybe you don't put their picture up on the wall, and sell it that way to recruits. But it sounded like maybe Jason Eck is actually okay with that.
No, and I don't know if he would sell I don't know if he would come out and sell a Luke Weissong or a Devin Dampier or guys like that he didn't directly coach and all that too. I think he would probably,
I just mean
he would probably sell a Giovanni McCoy, a guy like that who did really well for them, playing quarterback at Idaho and then went up to Oregon State. And I think he's one of the guys that Eck is frequently referenced. He got a 6-figure deal, and he kind of talked about that
being not so much that he's going to sell those guys. I'm just saying that he's not afraid to sell guys that left his program.
Exactly, I think it. He said today, like, look, you have to embrace. He said this on the show too. Credit to Geoff and JJ. You have to embrace this kind of time and period we're in terms of college football, the portal and all that as well. Things have changed, and that's just is what it is. But I mean, he said this in prior interviews, even before today as well, where it's we think we can use it as a recruiting tool. Where hey, we have these guys leave us and go get big paydays somewhere else, but they started here and we developed them here. And it's going to be interesting. Bronco definitely wanted to, and I don't want to like compare them, in all the particulars as well too, because it's probably not fair to either of them as well, because different backgrounds. But in terms of like what UNM will probably be in the long run, I mean, Bronco wanted a developmental program here, and I think Eck wants a developmental program here as well too. But you would never hear Bronco come out and say, these guys could go get paydays and all that, so that we can use to help recruit them. And I don't think that's a bad way to approach it in the slightest. I mean, 6 figures is life-changing money for a lot of people. It'd be life-changing money for me. I think it'd be life-changing money for you. A lot of people listen to this as well too. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty savvy way to do it. And also the going back to the Jack Land pass for 1,477 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Thank you, Jimmy. As I was just struggling to think of numbers earlier. And to go back to the kind of the comment earlier about, how could he get FBS level players? Yeah, from Juan. I really, I've seen some people kind of, clap back on the, the hire in some ways, not a ton, because he's an FCS guy and they're going to have FCS players as well too. I don't think the gap between a competitive Big Sky, like a third place Big Sky team, it's really that and the Missouri Valley Conference, those are the 2 best FCS conferences, is all that great in terms of talent from the Mountain West. I think the Mountain West has the edge overall, for sure. The Mountain West has a guy that you could argue probably should have won the Heisman this weekend too. But that being said, I mean,
what was his QBR? Tell me what his QBR was before I agree with that.
Yeah, no, I don't think the gap in talent is that major, and that's something he acknowledged in the show today too.
And I thought he said on the radio something that I like too is I think we all get caught up in trying to figure out something about recruits when we hear so and so's recruiting this player, right? And so we pull up what we can on them and we see how many stars they have. Yep. And even if we tell ourselves we're not going to be beholden to like the star system, if we don't know anything about a player, we don't know anything. So we try and base it on stuff like that. And he said something on the radio today that like maybe we didn't have a whole bunch of FBS players come into the program, but we've had a bunch leave the program, and that means he developed them. I mean, they might not have been considered. His point is they might not have been considered FBS level players when they got in our program, but then we developed them and they left and went to FBS Power 5 schools. So who was right there? Was it the player that wasn't an FBS player, or was it the system that didn't consider them an FBS player? And he's right. I mean, you got to develop the players too. The development never ends. I mean, I think sometimes too, even at the pro level, people forget that like there's a whole lot of development of players going on, like at the NBA level. So what makes you think at the college level, just because you get a 2-star, he can't develop into a 3 or a 4-star, and people sort of lock into what they were when they got there, and always believe that's who they are. And obviously, you can't take that approach if you're an FCS coach. You got to take some guys that probably didn't have a bunch of stars by their names. But you're right too in that let's slow it down a little bit on like he was playing with nobodies. He wasn't playing with a bunch of backup high school players. He was playing with star high school players from around the country that were recruited to FBS schools and made the decision for a variety of reasons to go play at Idaho at an FCS level. They had some talent at that level, is what I'm saying, and that's what you were just saying. So,
yeah, there's a part of it when it is kind of there's the line of question about, well, how can he, if he brings Idaho players here, how is UNM going to be competitive? That is a little bit dismissive to a certain degree, right? Yeah. I haven't watched every game for that Idaho play last season. I've been able to sit back over the weekend and watch a couple, and pretty competitive, some good talent there as well.
I want to get back to Ben Wysong real quick, the guy who's not allowed to watch Lobo football ever again. He is pointing out Evan's still a Lobo. He's next up. All right.
Is that a confirmation, Ben? Or wait, can I lock in the spreadsheet?
Breaking news. He is still on the roster, right? Okay, the Wysongs can keep watching. Great news to hear Evan is still here, Jimmy H says. Look, again, just to be clear, I don't know that Ben is speaking for Evan forever. Just keep in mind that until the semester starts in a few weeks in mid-January, or is it the second week of January, I think, until that semester starts, players can still come and go, and some of those players in the portal can hop right back out of it. Just like they hopped in, they could hop right back out now that they have a head coach and a chance to meet Jason Eck. I'm not saying Devin Dampier and Luke Wysong, who have already committed to other places, Nick Trujillo, they're not coming back. But look, a lot of those Lobos who are in the portal, I don't know if I want to put a number on how many or percentage. For the sake of discussion, half those guys may jump back out of the portal and stay at UNM now that they know who their coach is if they're sold on him. So another comment here. Just slap a silly bonus on it if he lasts 5 years. There are some retention bonuses in a lot of these contracts, and frankly, I wouldn't be surprised to see more schools start going that route. One issue with that is you try and pay him as much as you possibly can come up with. You scrounge up as much money as you can to pay the coach as much as you think you need to offer him to get him, and then promising 3 years from now $500,000 that you don't have. If you have that money, then pay it to him now is sort of what their point is. So there are schools that want to do that and just don't really have the financial wherewithal to be able to guarantee that's going to be there in a few years. And if you don't have the money in a few years, then you're in real trouble.
No, yeah, totally. And we're also entering a really interesting climate in college athletics as well, too, in terms of school financials and how it relates. That's correct.
Some revenue share issues that even if the House case doesn't come through and get approved and all that good stuff, there's some schools that are just going to do it anyway. They're going to go with the revenue share.
Yeah, and the days of the Jimbo Fisher contracts, the Mel Tucker contracts, those are going to be coming to a halt real soon. I think they're already coming to a halt in some ways.
Yes.
Eric Markham, I'm excited to see the front line this coach puts together. I'm assuming. There we go. Awesome. His background is, it is on the offensive line. He has coached offensive line forever. And I think that should be something that honestly should be, in my opinion, heartening to fans. Even if things aren't amazing in year one or something like that, and it might be more of a slog to get to the postseason than not, you're going to have a guy that has a lot of experience with the offensive line. And I think we've seen, previous hires in some degree that have, it hasn't been super easy putting together that offensive line together. And that's really, that's really the most important thing in a lot of different ways. Chris, the question here, I wonder if Eck will bring back some of the UNM players that did hit the portal.
Yeah. That's sort of what we're talking about. I'd be shocked if he doesn't.
Yeah, it's like you said. It's a question I'll ask him tomorrow too. Like, how do you go about this kind of re-recruiting process? I know that there's going to be, some meetings and all that too, but you're also balancing that with kind of putting together a staff and figuring out, what you want to do in some regards and all. It's just a lot going on. He's definitely hitting the ground here and absolutely sprinting.
You're not the only one, Chris. A lot of people I do think are hopeful that he will change the mind of some of the guys. I said it a week ago, and we don't need to go down the route of the whole philosophical discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
My opinion is, I'll just say it and then I'll move on and not let anybody respond. My opinion is, especially if you have a coaching change, but even frankly, if you don't, I think kids in this current landscape, as long as the parameters are exactly what they are right now, I think you jump into the portal, you see what's out there. If you want to stay, let's normalize players staying after testing the waters and jumping into the portal. I'm all for that, but I think more players probably should jump into the portal just to test and then decide to stay anyway. So I'm all for that. Just because you're in the portal doesn't mean you turned your back on UNM, and UNM certainly is not a program right now that's in any place to say they turn their back on players. And that means the ones that left too, and some of the reaction to, as I was giving Ben Weissong a hard time earlier, some of the reaction to Luke, by and large, was positive, but some of the reaction to like Luke and Devin Dampier leaving and forget them and all that, it's a joke, man. Like, yeah, you can miss me with all that, because that's just I really, really dislike when people give players a hard time who have taken a chance and given a whole hell of a lot to the program, and those players have.
Yeah, to add on that, I disagree with Geoff on the philosophical point that we kind of argued last week and all that too, but I am 100% on board with him. If you are a guy like Luke Weissong and you put in the time and the blood, sweat, tears, all that, and walking away from UNM with a degree and all that too, like, nobody should be criticizing you in any way or questioning your loyalty.
I only halfway endorse what Sean just said. I don't like the beginning part where he said he disagreed with me. All right.
Yes, Mackenzie. Yes. Mackenzie Ignell is a great example for this past year. The guy came from Texas A&M Commerce. He was a great player on the O-line. The dogs are everywhere. Yeah, I mean, frankly, like, we could honestly say that for those that don't remember or need a reminder or something like that, although I don't think most people that are watching this, kind of need to be reminded. Ignello was the guy, Juwan Singletary is going to be the starting center in fall camp. He suffered a season-ending injury. Ignello stepped in and never played center in a game before, and I don't think he had a single bad snap all year. He played both tackle positions as well, because that's kind of his background as well. And he was terrific. I mean, I thought he really took that offensive line to a really nice level. There's other good players too. Brock Beckett was very good. Richard Pierce was very good as well too. And Ignello just transferred to Houston. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly, there are guys that might be late bloomers, or they just might be in an area of the country where, they're kind of that might be saturated with recruits, something like that, and they're not the really trendy 4-star tackle or the super the 5-star guard or something like that, and they kind of get left behind when they're actually really good players. And
Jimmy, Montana State had some serious talent. I'll remind you that you can argue. The list is getting shorter and shorter who you can actually argue, but the best player in the NFL right now might be a guy who started his career at the FCS level, and that's Josh Allen with Buffalo Bills. Of course, Mahomes is still going to be in the conversation, and I'm a Lamar Jackson kind of guy myself. But if we're just talking quarterbacks, just remember where Josh Allen started his career. He didn't start it at Wyoming.
No, he didn't start at Wyoming. Was he an FCS guy? I thought he was a JUCO and then an FCS. JUCO
No,
and then Wyoming.
I'll pull it up to make sure I'm not making a total fool of myself, which is not allowed on the show.
No, that's unheard of. But Jimmy, to build on that, yeah, I mean, Tommy Mott is ridiculous, dude. That guy is a menace. That's a really good offensive line too. Good backs, and they're kind of banged up in the backfield too. Good players in defense. I mean, I remember way back when we were kind of talking about that first game. Brody Grebe, he's a guy that Grebe, I don't even remember. That's a guy that is definitely going to get an NFL look too. But Malott is just sensational. And I'm kind of rooting. Did you know about this? I'm kind of rooting for Montana State to win the FCS national title, and then Oregon to win out and win the national title, because I believe, I can double check this, I believe they open the next season against each other.
Ooh,
so have real different teams. It's not going to be the same, but a real kind of title unification bout right there.
I do want to real quick correct something that Sean was just wrong about. Josh Allen played JUCO ball before he went to Wyoming. It wasn't an FCS school, so Sean was clearly wrong on that. Not me.
Which JUCO? Wasn't it like Rancho Cucamonga or something like that? Or like, it was California, right?
Reedley College.
Reedley in California?
Yeah.
Okay.
California.
Where did I get Rancho Cucamonga from?
So yes, my apologies. I thought he was at FCS and then went to go play for Bowl at Wyoming. John, any thoughts on Utah State and Colorado State suing the Mountain West over exit fees?
Bylaws.
What's that?
Bylaws.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on the exit fee and the poaching fee lawsuits are probably, I think you swing you sue and then try and settle just to maybe mitigate the damage. But I don't see how you can get the exit fees that everyone, including USU and CSU, Utah State and Colorado State, agreed to. It just kind of blows my mind how much of the lawsuit and litigation, not that it happens, but that it seems to have life. That it doesn't go to court more. It goes to court in the sense that you file a lawsuit, but like it doesn't actually go to trial nearly enough. People end up settling. I don't get it, man. Like if you enter a league or you enter into an agreement for a scheduling agreement with the one and only clause being, we will schedule against you. This isn't what you're saying. This isn't what John's asking. These are schools talking about the exit fees, not the poaching fees. They want to lower the exit fees, if I'm not mistaken. And but the poaching fee thing is you don't enter into an agreement saying, will you please schedule your conference, schedule our schools because we don't have anybody to play. And the only agreement is we will, but you can't then take any of our schools without paying this penalty. And they're like, okay. And then you play them and you take those schools and say, we don't have to pay that penalty. Like we were under duress and we never thought that was a valid rule anyway. So anyway, yeah, my thoughts on it are, I think you probably have to try anymore just because so many of these get settled and you don't owe. If you owed 10 million, you might settle at 7.5 million or something like that. So maybe it will certainly, if you save 2.5 million, that would be worth it. But I just hate these lawsuits. At some point, I wish there was a way across the board you could enforce. Conferences certainly are independent and they have their own bylaws. But it seems like there's ways to enforce certain things in college sports. If you're all under the NCAA flag, and for now everyone is, I know the Big Ten and SEC might branch off at some point and not be NCAA related for football. But if you're all under the NCAA flag, like the NCAA at some point should step in and just say, look, we approve these bylaws for this conference. You don't get to then change it after the fact. And anyway, I digress. You have any thoughts?
No, really no. I have some thoughts. I don't know if I would be able to put them as eloquently as you just did there too.
Yeah, eloquently. I get
another great part of that offensive line too. That is really kind of insane. The fact that they were able to put that line together and also deal with the injuries they did. Tevin Shaw went down at left tackle, and then Lawan Owen stepped in, did a really nice job through the rest of the season after that Auburn game. Or really started during that Auburn game, just kind of held on to it the rest of the year. Really good stuff. Yeah, brain has not been good the last couple of days. Kind of the post-coaching search brain has not been ideal.
What do you guys think about Northern Illinois football joining the Mountain West? I hate it. Let's keep the Mountain West in the West. That is from Eric on YouTube.
I will note Northern Illinois is the westernmost MAC school. It is the MAC school that is the furthest west. So
I will say that what it does is opens up another time zone. And while that may not seem important in any way to most people, in this era of TV contracts, if you now span from not just Central, Mountain, and Pacific time zones, but then you go into Hawaii is going to have, let's just call 5 conference home games. And Northern Illinois is going to have 4 or 5 conference home games. And then you have all the other teams in between. You have some scheduling flexibility throughout the season with whoever your TV partner is to not just get 1, but get 2 good time slots for college games. You don't. Schools at the Mountain West level don't really want to schedule their games early enough in the day if they're going to be competing with all the schools back east and in the Midwest that are on, the main stations, CBS, Fox, and stuff like that. If they can go a little bit later, they want that. That's what the value of football out west is. But adding a central time zone gives the Mountain West some flexibility to at least several times a year be able to start at a game at 5 p.m. and then a game at 8 p.m. as opposed to, basically they can only start their games at 8 p.m. after all these other teams are done. So anyway, the benefit is for TV and the time zone, and that's about the extent of it. You open up another recruiting area. I get all that. But Northern Illinois is a good football program, and it does open up a time zone. And since it's football only, the same arguments that we're having about why is the Big Ten going to USC and UCLA, and the tennis team has to go travel across the country to play Rutgers. That's not the case here. It's only for football for Northern Illinois. all those other sports would have to find another conference. And that's sort of the question now. I read Matt Brown Extra Points newsletter, and it's essentially right now the hang up on Northern Illinois is they just want to, before they say yes on football, they want to make sure some conference is going to take all their other sports. And I think that's the only hang up at this point. They're on board with doing this for football because despite what a lot of people think, even this new Mountain West is still going to have some value to it in a TV market landscape. And they think they're going to get more money by doing this and to help their football program. So those are my thoughts. I'm okay with it only because it's football and only because I get the logistics of why they want this for TV flexibility purposes. Outside of Jack Lane, are there any other quarterbacks the Lobos have offered at this point? It's hard to offer until you get that coach, so I don't think there are they?
I have only seen Lane. I have only seen Lane to this point in terms of public. If they've done one behind closed doors, and I might have misspoke earlier. I just double-checked because I saw us kind of a linger in the comments. I said, well, did they offer Wagner? And I haven't even seen Jack Wagner, the other Idaho quarterback, say he's in the portal yet. So apologies to Jack Wagner. And if I misspoke earlier, I don't remember exactly, but what I said.
I think it was you that said Josh Allen went to an FCS school. It was weird.
Gosh. Yes, I did. I'm getting it from everybody lately. Patino's ragging me before the press conference.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. I'm going to mention that. Jimmy does answer Eric's question as I was doing earlier. It's just about the TV thing.
Can we I didn't read that Matt Brown thing. I don't remember who reported it last week. There was a little bit of a rumble about if Northern Illinois does go through with this with the Mountain West, and the MAC might not be a home for the rest of their athletic program.
The MAC has kind of made it clear that they don't want their ground to stand on is we don't want you leaving. We don't want to lose a football product. So you're out of our league. I can tell you the bylaws in the Mountain West say unless previously agreed upon, like with some schools, it has been, you need to have 4 sports to be in the Mountain West. Mm-hmm. Those 4 sports are football, women's volleyball, and men's and women's basketball. Those are the 4 sports required to be in the Mountain West. You have to have several other ones as well, obviously, just to be an NCAA recognized program you do. But to be in the Mountain West, you have to have at least those 4, and then some combination of sports like swimming, tennis, golf, baseball, softball, etc. So there we go. So Saturday night, Lobo basketball played, and they avoided the upset against Western. They were down 14-12 at one point, and I did tweet out upset alert. Western was up on the Lobos, but the Lobos were managed to rally, and they won by 52 against Western. And after the game, Fernando Lobo was scheduled to talk to media about football, and that's Sean's realm, and in the pit press area, because that's where all the media was going to be. So Fernando went there to talk to them about that. Before that happened, Sean's sitting in there, and Richard Pitino comes in and is pretty much from the start just annoyed by Sean's presence.
I believe his words were, "What is this guy doing here? What's a football guy doing here?"
And pretty much said, get out of here, and pointed across the street. Go, football's over there. He also made it clear he's a big fan of this show.
Yes.
And he did that by saying you guys have no chemistry. But we know what he meant. I watch your show all the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm so rude of me, Coach Pitino. I know you're watching right now. How you doing? I know we saw you earlier today, but I know you're watching. So big shout out to Richard Pitino, big fan of the show. Jason Eck will soon be a big fan of the show, I'm sure. So there we go. What else, Sean? What do you want to touch on football? Any loose ends you want to kind of tie together here before we kind of call it a show, call it a day?
I think, frankly, and shout out to everybody with the comments and all that too, producing our show for us. I think we've covered a lot of kind of what we know at this point, and what we don't know at this point too. We're bound to get a lot more answers tomorrow. I'm excited to talk to Jason and kind of get the ball rolling there. And I will be putting together do this pretty much every portal cycle, just kind of a long thread of whatever New Mexico offers I see on Twitter and all that too. And usually 75% of them don't pan out. but at least it's kind of just something that's out there as well too. I'm updating the transfer tracker today as well too with some other stuff I've seen, and hopefully we will be able to update that with a couple of commitments sooner rather than later. But I do have a question for you on the basketball front. What can you tell us about VCU coming up on Wednesday?
Yeah, Max. So Ryan Odom's the coach. He is the former Mountain West Coach of the Year at Utah State. 2-year stint there that went better than a lot of people thought. He was the former UMBC coach that pulled off the first ever 16 one-seed upset in the NCAA tournament, and they beat Virginia. Kind of parlays that a year later, so 2 seasons later, I guess, into the Utah State job. Does really well there, gets the VCU job. Basically, he's killing it there too. Like, he's in his second year. The Lobos got a home and home with VCU, where they start obviously this year in the pit Wednesday night, and then they return the favor and go to Virginia next year. As you can see on social media, the Lobos are already kind of hyping this up. And it's funny because everyone complains about their non-conference schedule, right? And getting really good opponents to come in here and this and that. And it's hard to get good teams into the pit. Well, this is being kind of somewhat hyped up, and it was talked about in our press conference earlier today with Richard Pitino. A top 50 KenPom non-conference opponent visits the pit for the first time in 7 years.
Who was the last one?
That's a good question. I can tell you. So I'll pull it up and tell you. But 7 years since a top 50 ranked KenPom team has been here. It's not that the Lobos haven't played good teams in the non-conference, but they haven't done it in the pit very often. So let's see. What was 7 years ago? 2019?
2019 was 7 years ago?
7 seasons ago? Or we're talking 18 because 25, 24.
Yeah, no, actually, what you're saying, yeah.
21, 2019. Because this is the 25 season. So it's either 17, 18. I mean, it's either 18 or 19. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling to buy some time here. In 2019, in the pit, I'm not seeing anybody that came into the pit. I'm gonna have to ask Steve who it is. I mean, I suppose New Mexico State could have been. New Mexico State that year finished 53rd in KenPom, and they might have been that good when they came to the pit. Oh, Colorado. I think it was Colorado. December 11th, 2018, played in the pit, and I think when they came, they were top 50. Now, At the end of the year, a better ranked team than that in KenPom that played in the pit is New Mexico State. They finished at 53rd, and Colorado finished at 63rd. But if I'm not mistaken, Colorado, when they played, was no. There you go. All that rambling, and Colorado was ranked 60th when they played in the pit.
Are you sure it's not 2018?
I'm looking at 2018 now.
I don't even know. I haven't looked at KenPom in forever. I don't even know how it's laid out in terms of the season stuff.
Well, I'm looking at KenPom now, and the best team that came to the pit that season in non-conference play was, okay, there we go. 2017-2018 season, and on December 16th, 2017, against Paul Weir's Fighting Lobos was Sean Miller's Arizona Wildcats. And that was when Arizona and Sean Miller, credit to them because it doesn't happen anymore, did a home and home with New Mexico, did a home and home with UTEP, and did a home and home with New Mexico State. All 3 of those teams in this region that can't get good programs like that to come, Sean Miller did a home and home with Arizona with all 3 of those programs. So credit to him. But yeah.
Classy coach, spells his name right. Also, I was confused when we said 7 years ago and you said 2019.
Why? Because that's 5 years ago?
Yeah. Good for Sean Miller.
Good for Sean Miller.
So
anyway, yeah, back to the original question was how good is the VCU? They're the best team that's come to the pit in 7 years. If you go by KenPom, which I always love my KenPom stats. Bart Torvik is another one I actually use a lot. I just don't talk about it as much. But I'll admit to you guys, feel a safe space here. I also like the BartTorvik.com rankings, and he has some stuff on there that KenPom doesn't, that I like kind of diving into a little bit. But just so you know, the VCU breakdown, if you want to go by, again, just because I have KenPom open, their defense is ranked 8th nationally out of 364 teams. New Mexico's offense right now is nice. It's ranked 69th out of 364 teams. And then on the other side, the other matchup, New Mexico's defense is 95th to VCU's 90th on offense. So VCU is going to be ranked higher. VCU probably won't be favored because the home court will put the pit back into New Mexico's favor. UNM is favored according to KenPom by 1 point, 76 to 75 is what the prediction is by KenPom. But VCU is a really, really good team. What they have struggled with this year so far, it looks like turnovers, which could be a good thing for the Lobos because the Lobos force a lot of turnovers. VCU's offense ranks 216th in turnover rate. So maybe they turn it over a little bit. They're not excellent offensively, but defensively they're really shutting teams down, not letting them shoot a high percentage, blocking good number of shots, blocking or stealing at a fairly high rate, and they don't foul a whole. Well, actually, they foul at I guess above average rate. So maybe the Lobos do get to the free throw line a little bit more and get some shots there, even though they're not great free throw shooting team. If they get VCU in trouble, in foul trouble, that'd be great. VCU opponents score an awful lot at the free throw line, so that might be the opening for the Lobos. Is VCU opponents get a high percentage of their points at the free throw line and very small percentage of their points at the 3-point line, which is good considering there's really only one 3-point shooter on the Lobo team anyway. I'm guessing the Lobos go inside and try and get fouled all game long. So there you go. There's my quick rundown. Real quick, offensively, VCU is also really good at 3-point shooting, and they get a lot of their points off of the 3-point shot. So Lobo fans who are sick of seeing teams come into the pit and fire up a bunch of threes and make a bunch of threes, hopefully on Wednesday for you, they just fire up a bunch of threes and don't make a whole bunch of them. But, man, they're putting up a lot of three-pointers. There will be one guy who's played in the pit before, Max Schulga, was on the Utah State team. Played, wow. Yeah, he played for Ryan Odom, had some good games at Utah State, transferred to VCU, and he's from Ukraine, and he's killing it, man. They are picked to win the A10. So it's a good team.
Kind of messy A10 this year. I mean,
it's really been messy or bunched up, depending on how you want to say it. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, the A10 has more teams in the top 100 in KenPom than does the Mountain West. They have teams in the top 100. Highest ranked right now would be Dayton at 26th, and then the next one being VCU at 42, who was the preseason pick to win the A10, VCU. And then you got George Mason, St. Bonaventure, Rhode Island, Loyola, Chicago, all also ranked in the top 100. So again, the Atlantic 10 right now has 6 teams in the top 100. Mountain West only has 5. And you're looking at a team that was picked to win that league and is rated higher than the Lobos right now. So anybody going to Wednesday night's game expecting the Lobos to have an easy game just because you're not familiar with Virginia Commonwealth, you'll be surprised. And it's going to be it should be a pretty good game.
Where's LaSalle in KenPom? You know where LaSalle is?
If I had to guess, I would say they're ranked about 152nd. It's just a guess. LaSalle is 152 right now.
Man. Well, okay. Thank you for the breakdown, Geoff.
There we go. All right, guys.
We do have basketball. There was a weekly honor this week too.
Yep, I'll mention that. So I love how Coach P substituted by position last Saturday. Do you think he will continue to sub that way? Maybe. I mean, so his primary rotation is going to stay 7 or 8. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to. I guess I need to know exactly more what you're referencing. Substituted by position. I mean, he can't just go. Every time Donovan's tired, I put in Cade. Every time Trues is tired, I put in this person because their 2 and their 3 are basically 3 or 4 guys that play either of those positions. So it's not just a 1-for-1. You can only substitute one position at a time. Sometimes you kind of got to put in a guy and then rotate some other guys on the court to other positions. Atiki wasn't available for the New Mexico State game. And when that happened, they had to mess around with who spells Nelly Jr. Joseph a little bit at the 5 spot, at the center spot. And when they did that, Mustafa had to go play the 5. It really messed up his offensive game. Mustafa Amzila is not a 5, and when he has to defend it, it seems to mess with his offensive game. But yeah, anyway, I think speaking to speaking to, you said that, so that was his rotation in the first half. The starting rotation had True out of the starting rotation, and that was mainly because he wanted to get Philip Borovic in at the 3 more minutes, and he has the most room to grow, is what Patino said. So it had nothing to do with True, had more to do with we want to get Philip going. But that rotation at the 3 is really a unique situation where it's CJ Nolan, Philip Borovic, and Braden Appelhans are the 3 guys who play the 3. But when you want to get Philip in more, that doesn't mean you just take CJ off the court. Sometimes you move CJ over to the 2, which then gives True Washington a little bit of a breather. So True for Nolan was technically what you could call the swap, or I'm sorry, Nolan did go to the 2, but it was to get Philip in along with CJ. So CJ and Philip technically play the 3 in an ideal world. They both play the same position, but I do think what to get to what you're kind of getting at is I think there will be more Philip Borovic and CJ Nolan on the court together, both playing that 2-3 spot. And Braden Appelhans is the best shooter on the team. He's really the only pure shooter. There's some other guys, I've said it before, other guys that can make shots on this team, but none that I call a 3-point shooter like I call Braden. You say you like True starting and Nolan off the bench. I tend to agree with you. I think Nolan off the bench is the spark kind of guy that they need. I think True's defense is something that I think you like right off the start to maybe just mess up what another team's game plan is to start a game. But anyway, that's where we're out there. As far as the award goes, Jovan Milicevic, butchered that one, had himself a heck of a game, and it was because backups got a ton of minutes against Western New Mexico, and the freshman from Toronto, but his parents are Serbian. He is Serbian, and he went off against Western New Mexico, had a career high in his young college career of 21 points, 18 minutes, of which he played 14 minutes and 35 seconds, the final 14:35 of the game. I thought he was going to die out there. He looked like he was just sucking wind and
running ragged.
I do not know the last time he played 15 consecutive minutes. He certainly has never played 15 consecutive college minutes, and he was pretty tired, but man, he was impressive. He had 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, hit 3 3-pointers, and when you're 6'10" guy who you want to be a stretch 4, is putting up 21, still getting some rebounds, 6 of them, but also stretching the floor with those 3 3-pointers. That is the upside that they saw in Jovan when he got here. He was really impressing them in the middle of the summer, and then really focused on losing a bunch of weight. He's lost a good 30 pounds. I don't know if that had any effect on it, but he kind of hit a wall a little bit after a few weeks of really impressing them, and wasn't nearly as impressive, frankly. And that's why he wasn't getting a whole lot of minutes. But it looks like maybe he's over that. And if he can be in the rotation, if he can be a true backup to Mustafa Amzil starting at the 4, and you don't have to go into the 35-minute range with Mustafa Amzil, if you can keep Mustafa down to just say 30 minutes and Jovan at 10 or 12 minutes, I think the Lobos would be really, really grateful if that happens. And we'll see if Jovan's big game against a D2 school translates into him being a regular 10-minute guy. And then you have a true backup at the 4, as opposed to just sort of messing around with moving Mustafa over and Atiki and Nelly and all those guys and just seeing who you play at the 4. I do think if you have a true 4 backup in Jovan, I think the Lobos would love that flexibility. And I bring all that up because if I didn't say it, he won Mountain West Freshman of the Week today. So that's why I'm talking Jovan right now. Mountain West Freshman of the Week. First Mountain West Freshman of the Week this season for the New Mexico Lobos. They had 2 players win it last year. True Washington won it, I believe, twice. But then, of course, JT Toppin won it like 9 times and could have won it more. I think they just got sick of giving it to him and tried to spread the award around a little bit. Yeah. That JT Toppin guy had himself a pretty good freshman year last year. So here we go. How about we press the whole game? That's a possibility with more depth, I think. And it kind of depends too on True Washington. If True's staying out of foul trouble, I think they'll press a lot more. I think he trusts that guys like Donovan aren't going to foul a lot. I think he trusts some of the other guys to not foul a whole lot. Unfortunately, it's because they don't always play great defense. But I think he knows that those guys aren't going to get in foul trouble if they press all game. But True's the guy. True can't help himself. True only knows how to play defense one way, and it's all out. And when that's working, he is an elite defender. If they are calling a tight whistle, though, True can get in foul trouble pretty quick, and they back off the press. So that's my thought on the press. Has a lot to do with True Washington's foul trouble. So JT Toppin, good player when he's on the court. Can confirm. Justin, you're the expert there, and that's high end analysis that you only get if you follow Justin Apodaca on X right now. So he can confirm JT Toppin's doing pretty good where he's at when he plays. He hasn't been on the court all season. There's been some moments where he hasn't played as much, and he's not nearly as good when he's not playing. So thank you for the confirmation there, Justin. He's doing pretty good. So one last thing on True's defense. I agree with you, Eric. True's defense is infectious too. We talked with Braden Applehans today about energy on this team and how this team just, frankly, Pitino's talked about it. I'm going to be writing about it today. This team, more than any team he's ever coached, let me back up, more than any team he's coached at UNM in his 4 years, he has to get on. He has to kick them in the butt a little bit more. He's not saying they're bad, but this team is not a team of self-starters energy-wise other than True Washington, really. And that's probably because, as Braden Applehans said today, Jalen House isn't out there. We couldn't help but get excited and have high energy with Jalen House around because it just happened. He was that guy. Well, there's no Jalen House this year. When there was Jalen House, Pitino didn't even really realize it, and the coaching staff probably didn't even realize it, but they backed off we need to get these guys going and motivated all the time because they didn't have to. When you have that in the locker room, you do back off that, and they didn't really realize that until that New Mexico State game, which was really 2 games in a row if you consider the San Jose State game 3 games prior. They just didn't have any energy, and nobody was getting them up. So True is the only guy on the team that kind of does that. His defense is infectious. Jalen House was that guy in the past, and the coaching staff, though, realized about a week or 2 ago, they wish they'd realized it before the New Mexico State game, that it's on them a whole lot more than it's been in 3 previous years to actually get these guys off their butts and get them ready for games energy-wise because they're not doing it nearly as well as they had the previous 3 years. So, Sean, I'm done with basketball. Sean, what do you got?
Really, I mean, nothing else. Press conference is tomorrow. The time was changed again. It'll be at 9:30 a.m. At the Pit. It was previously scheduled for 10 a.m. on Tuesday, and then before that, it was scheduled for 10 a.m. on Wednesday. So a couple changes there, but looking forward to meeting Jason and getting some fresh information to kind of get out to you guys. Looking forward to taking a look at this term sheet too, and kind of going from there. I'll be taking off a little bit of time next week and all that with the holiday coming around, but going to be trying to keep you guys updated as much as possible when it comes to the portal and recruiting and staffing and everything that's going to kind of happen over the next couple weeks.
And I'll say this, I always at the end kind of just try and get you guys, remind you guys how to watch our coverage or follow our coverage. It's abqjournal.com. And Sean's been killing it on the coaching search, and you guys should he's going to, I'm sure, continue to. But Sean, good work on everything you did and behind the scenes. I know other things that come into play and coverage and all that kind of stuff and decisions that have to be made. But we certainly, I think, did a good job. I get to throw in the we here, even though I did nothing. I think you did a really good job on this coaching search. But so people know too, there's other things sometimes that don't get printed that I wish I could speak more on. We made the right call on a whole bunch of stuff, and Sean was killing it on this coverage for a while. And there you go. There's my tip of the cap to Sean, who for some reason doesn't know Josh Allen's history.
Well, thank you, Geoff. Appreciate it. It means a lot. And I'll be going home flying home on Friday. So maybe we can do a live show from when I'm back in Michigan. Maybe we'll have something in the works for that, depending on what's going on, or maybe we don't.
This worldwide web thing that they got going,
I know,
would allow that.
It would indeed, and maybe the woman that emails you, maybe we can get her involved in some content.
Nice.
So,
nice. We do need to make an effort to incorporate more guests on this show because our chemistry sucks, as was pointed out by Richard Pitino.
He could be a part of the solution. He really could.
He could be if he wanted to.
Be part of the solution. I have a lot of college football questions for him too.
He did, by the way, today talk about, and I'm going to post the video of the presser here in a little bit, but about going to his son's basketball game this weekend and sitting with the parents and realizing we as adults sometimes put way too much on the kids' plates and this and that. And he's listening to other parents and how they all hate the coach and they all expect their kids and to be great and this and that. And he said his wife was yelling something once, and he looked at her like, "You're a coach's wife. You know better than to just yell at the coach."
What are you doing?
And somebody said, "Well, don't you think Jack's good? Like, I mean, don't you?" And he's like, "Well, no, he's 10. Like, I don't think he's particularly good. He's 10 years old. And this game doesn't matter right now. So parents need to quit acting like it does." And then he said, I said, "So you're telling me you never look at out on the court, even at that level, and say, man, why did they run that? Or why?" And he said, "No." He said, "I'll tell you right now, Jack's coach is Curtis Pino. He's a dentist around town, and they're good friends, by the way, Patino and Pino, who sits courtside every game." He said, "Curtis Pino thinks he knows basketball, but like he doesn't. He's a football guy. He doesn't know basketball, but he's my son's coach. I'm not going to give him a hard time about it," while he's giving him a hard time about it in a press conference. So anyway, it was interesting. Patino talked about being a parent and being a coach, and how he does not criticize coaches in his role as the parent of a basketball protege in Jack Patino.
Yeah, let's get Pino on the show. Let's talk about. Let's get deeper. Yeah. Let's keep going. He's a football guy. I'm in.
Patino talked about you as a basketball coach. What do you think about Patino as a dentist? Is he any good? Oh, he's not. Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Thank you guys for following along. Thank you guys for making the show. Got about 500 today. We're doing good. We'll as weekly as we can, and appreciate it. All the coverage is at abqjournal.com. And thanks for being here. Thanks for sending in the questions. Keep them coming as we do these shows. And till next time, we think it'll be next week. I know I'll have a pregame show on Wednesday before the VCU game. Mm-hmm. And we will try and find a way to do a show next week, even with Sean out of Albuquerque. I think this World Wide Web works outside of Albuquerque too. The only reason I know that is because Justin Apodaca keeps sending us messages from outside of Albuquerque.
From far away Lubbock.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll figure something out. If we don't do it before Christmas, to everybody that always watches, we appreciate you. Thank you for producing the show. And if we don't get it before Christmas, Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday to all y'all.
Thanks, guys.